SportsTalkSC.com. Now here are your hosts, Phil Kornbluth, Kevin McCrary, and Tom Hayes.
And we had a lot of opportunities today offensively. Left way too many guys on base. We just couldn't come up with a big hit, the sac fly. We just couldn't come up with an at bat where we could drive in some runs. That's the bottom line.
Clemson skipper Monty Lee there as the Tigers and Louisville game one of that epic ACC series, or at least a series that is very big for both clubs. We'll see if it's epic. That one in the books. They had to move it up because of the weather rolling through the Palmetto State, and Louisville won 4-2, but it wasn't like Clemson didn't have any opportunities. We're going to break that game for you, break it down for you, and we'll hear from Monty Lee coming up later in the program. They did leave a ton of runners on base, Pro. A ton of runners on base. And by a ton, I mean 16. Yeah, 16 runners on base.
9-inning game.
That's a lot.
Well, you know,
sounds like a lot. It is a lot.
Without looking at the game, you almost want to think from a psychological standpoint. Baseball, more than any other sport, you have to have skill and you have to have patience. And I'm not so certain that Clemson's hitters, once they got on and they got some runners on base, they were just swinging at pitches out of the strike zone, maybe because they're anxious because they got Louisville in town, that national seed. All that's got to be flushed out of your head and just hit a baseball. I know Louisville is good, but when you're at home and you've got that many people on base, normally Clemson's going to hit you at least with 7 to 8 runs in a contest.
Yeah, Mother Nature not doing any favors for the Tigers because they had to move that thing up. It would have been a night game, would have been packed. They have graduation ceremonies going on at Clemson today, so they had that going on. That's going to take away from your crowd. Traffic around the area is bad, so they didn't have that full home field advantage that they normally do, but they had plenty of opportunities. Mentioned all those runners they left on base. In the bottom of the 8th inning, they had the bases loaded and nobody out and Seth Beer up. That's the perfect situation if you're Clemson. You couldn't draw it up any better than that, and Beer ended up grounding into a double play, third base to home to first base, and that ended the major threat, and the Tigers had a runner on in scoring position with less than 2 outs in the 9th inning, just unable to push them home. So we'll get more from Monty Lee coming up later in the program. USC opens up a huge series at Missouri. The Gamecocks, as I see it, they have to win this series. I don't think that's a mystery. And a lot of people will tell you, depending on who you talk to, that they have to sweep Georgia at home. That's going to be difficult. I don't care who you are. It's hard to sweep a team in the Southeastern Conference and the ACC. It's just difficult to do. And Georgia is not a good team. They haven't had a good season, just like Alabama has not had a good season. They swept Auburn last week. It's just very difficult. But if the Gamecocks win 2 of 3 this weekend against Missouri and 2 of 3 next weekend and hold serve, that would get them at 15 and 15 at the 15-win mark in the SEC going into Hoover. Maybe they would need some help, but certainly that would put them in decent shape. If they get to 16 wins with their RPI in the top 25, I think that would get them in. But the Gamecocks have some work to do down the stretch here, Pro.
Well, and lightning can strike anywhere, because I always tell people, they look at a team, well, you know, that they don't have a very good team. Yeah, but you never know when the light comes on, because that not very good Georgia team lost into Lexington last week. It took 2 out of 3 from Kentucky that looked like a juggernaut when they came into Columbia. So it can happen to anybody. I think South Carolina just have to take that relaxed mindset of what they did. And I understand the opposition, but Liberty is a good team. And for what they did the other night, they just need to bottle that. Just keep that in, that positive thinking in your head that you're never out of a ball game, and take 2 out of 3 up in the other Columbia.
Not easy to go on the road and win, but Missouri, after a pretty good start, they've come back to earth a little bit. It's do or die time, and Chad Holbrook said earlier this week they are approaching every game now like a postseason game. They are in the postseason. Their mentality right now is we are in the postseason. They played well. I agree with you. That come from behind win against Liberty. They were down 6-1 in the 5th inning, and they rallied and they won that game. That's a game that helped their RPI. Liberty is a solid club, so maybe that gives them some confidence. Maybe that helps exercise some of those demons. And the other point Chad Holbrook has been making this week is he doesn't think his team's playing poorly. They've lost series after series after series in the Southeastern Conference, including that one at LSU. But his point was they played pretty well at LSU. They were right there on Sunday with the chance to win that series, had a tough call, had a lead in the bottom of the 9th inning. They're hanging around. So no team has swept them. The Gamecocks have not been on the wrong end of a sweep, but they have had a chance to win every series. And not only have they not been swept in these series that they've lost, they've had a lead late in the deciding game in a lot of those series. They just have not been able to finish it. Now, is Tyler Johnson going to find his command? Is he going to be able to get his stuff back? Because he is struggling. He struggled against Liberty and had to be pulled from the game with the bases loaded. Is Tyler Reagan going to be the new closer? There are a lot of things they have to work out still, including what's between the ears. But if they get a little momentum going, if they can take that series, get that monkey off their back, come back home to face Georgia next weekend, maybe they get into the postseason. They're going to be on the road wherever they are. They're probably going to be a 2 or maybe even a 3 seed. That might be more likely. There's not a huge difference between being a 2 or 3 in a regional. It's a 4-team regional. If you're the 3 seed, you're just the visiting team instead of the home team in that first game. You're still going to have to play the 1 seed in the second game if you win, in all likelihood, unless something goofy happens. So they're going to be on the road. They're going to have their work cut out for them, but they cannot afford to miss the postseason 2 out of 3 years. They're not in uncharted waters right now, and this has been pointed out. The Gamecocks have been in this situation where they had to win in the last couple of weekends, even the last game of the season, to get into the SEC tournament and make sure they have a shot at the postseason. They've always been able to pull that rabbit out of their hat until 2015 when they did not. If that happens again, 2 out of 3 years, that is unprecedented. That has not happened recently. Not unprecedented, but in the modern era of Gamecock baseball, which is Ray Tanner to present, and Gamecock fans are not going to sit around and twiddle their thumbs while that does happen. So it is a pivotal weekend for USC. Maybe being on the road, Holbrook has made this point. He thinks they relax a little bit on the road sometimes when they don't have the other factors. School is out now, so they don't have the school distraction. Maybe they can catch lightning in a bottle. So we're going to talk some baseball tonight. Certainly, we're going to talk a little recruiting. Kornblut is off, by the way, if you haven't noticed. I'm sure you did. Like, how could Kornblut not have said anything at this point?
He's making calls. That's what he's doing.
So, yeah,
calls.
well, he's getting ready for the Celtics and the Washington Wizards. That's what he's getting ready for.
That's a joke series because each team just blowing each other out on the other person's court is ridiculous.
Well, Washington would be okay with that tonight since they're the home team. Been a rough week in Washington with the Caps losing to the Pens. They're already freaking out. So if the Wizards get eliminated tonight, they're going to be really, really upset. I don't know if they're going to be able to overcome that in DC. And they have, our government running there or not running there. So it's been a pretty rough week in Washington all the way around.
They're not paying attention.
It's been a circus in DC, to say the least. So Kornblut off tonight, getting squared away there. But we do have recruiting for you. Recruiting never takes a night off. So that's coming up later this hour. I mentioned we'll hear from Tiger skipper Monty Lee, get his thoughts on that 4-2 loss at Clemson. Certainly, even though they were down 4-0, 3 of those runs, unearned runs, by the way. So it's just one of those games as a coach, as a team, you are kicking yourself because you feel like you played good enough to win, maybe even outplayed your opponent, but don't have anything to show for it. So they're going next 2 to win that series. And it's one of those series at Clemson. They've had some big series wins, Wake Forest, Virginia, but that would have been a signature series win and something to solidify a top 8 national seed. Plenty to do on Sports Talk. We're just cranking things up. Hunker down, relax, get ready. We'll be back after a quick timeout. Enjoying a Friday night here on Sports Talk South Carolina Radio Network, coming to you live from our downtown Columbia studios on Main Street, the Main Street of sports. Sports Talk. Kevin McCrary, the Professor Tom Hayes, hanging out with you. Phil Kornblut with the night off. We've got some people running around behind the scenes, behind the glass. Jared Rogers Martin somewhere back there. We have Pat Daniel back there as well. And maybe others, I don't know. I can't keep up with everybody that's coming in and out of our studios anymore. If you want to be a part of our show tonight, you're invited. Toll free, you can join us on the phone, 800-956-7266. We'll open up the phone lines for you. I like taking calls. I enjoy hearing what you have to say. So we will get you on with little or no wait tonight. We'll give you the priority. If there's something that you want to kick around, talk about, some baseball, as the college baseball season winds down. What does Clemson have to do to secure a top 8 national seed? What does South Carolina have to do to get Gamecock fans back on board? Making the postseason, making a super regional. Does this team, even with its injuries, losing Clark Schmidt, is anything less than Omaha still a disappointment? You can share your thoughts there at 800-956-7266. We can talk some football. We were kicking around some football items last night. We're always willing to talk football. We're going to check in on the NBA scouting combine. That's going on in Chicago. This is very rare for us to be interested in the NBA scouting combine, but there are 3 players from local schools involved, with 2 from South Carolina. Again, that's just strange to say. But then again, it was strange to say South Carolina in the Final Four as well. But P.J. Dozier and Sindarius Thornwell are up there. And from Clemson, for the second straight year, Jerome Blossom game going through the scouting combine. So checking on what's going on there. We'll hear from Dozier. We'll hear from Thornwell. Thornwell's talked to a lot of teams, and Dozier has talked to a lot of teams. And Blossom game, I haven't seen the entire list of teams that he's talked to, but I'm sure he's also talked to a lot of teams, and we'll get a better idea after this combine ends in Chicago where those guys could end up. Let's catch you up on a few of the news items of the day. First of all, Deshaun Watson has officially put pen to paper on his rookie deal with the Texans. According to NFL.com, Watson inked his 4-year rookie deal today. A source told NFL Network insider Ian Rappaport with this deal, it's a 4-year contract with a team option for a 5th season. That's standard in all first-round picks contracts. Rappaport added the contract for Watson is worth almost $14 million. It includes a signing bonus of $8 million. We were talking about this pre-show in our prep, and Jared pointed this out. That is significantly smaller pro than the deal that Watson's teammate Mike Williams got with the LA Chargers.
Mm-hmm.
He got about almost a $19 million contract, all of it guaranteed, with the signing bonus was pretty close. I think it was $9 million, but not a huge discrepancy in the between picks there, 7 and 12. And you're talking about a quarterback versus a receiver. I know it's almost slotted with these picks, but I mean, it's not a small chunk of change.
No. And
so you get your taxes. And
let's face it, as I keep telling people, everybody, don't worry about the first contract. It's that second and third that's going to make you. And when you're a quarterback, I mean, if he does well, and we all expect he will, that will jump exponentially in the coming years.
And yeah, you can tear that thing. I mean, the thing about a contract now, guaranteed money is important. Anytime you see a contract, sometimes you'll see these guys sign a 5-year, $65 million contract, and people go, wow, NFL money's not guaranteed money.
No.
You have to look at what the guaranteed money is and what the signing bonus is. That's money you're going to get. And it works both ways. A team can cut you to save money, or if you get injured, part ways with you. But let's say Watson goes out and wins Rookie of the Year and leads the Texans to the AFC Championship game. He can go back to the Texans and say, you know what, time to rework that contract.
Well, I think probably
or I'm going to hold out. That's not. I'm not saying that's what Watson would do. That's not his personality per se. But players do that sort of thing.
Oh no, it has nothing to do with personality.
It's business.
This is business
right
now. And see, the deal is, he's already probably, and he's got a good agent. He's already put bonuses in there. How much he gets because he gets the starting job. They win division. If he's rookie of the year, I think those bonuses all rolled up in there. And then what do we do when we come back to the table? Well, we'll take care of you. So yeah, this is business now. This is, and if you perform, you will get paid.
I think Watson's going to be outstanding on the next level. And maybe I'm blinded by just watching him. I understand there can be a bias that comes from watching people play a lot and you watching them have success, but just seeing Watson from his freshman year till the time he finished at Clemson, on and off the field, and the plays that he made, I just wouldn't bet against the guy. I'm still not betting against him. And falling to the Texans, that could be an ideal situation for him. Now, do I think he's going to do what Dak Prescott did? That's a stretch. Winning Rookie of the Year, leading the Texans to the playoffs. I don't know when it's going to happen. I just don't think Deshaun Watson is going to fail. You never know what's going to happen with injuries and just outside factors. But if Deshaun Watson doesn't make it, it won't be because he didn't put in the effort, study, do the right things off the field. That's not going to be the problem.
Well, the key point is, and I said before the draft, there were several teams that I thought he would be good. I thought because of Bruce Arians' coaching, Arizona would have been a nice stop for him, which was right below the pick that the Texans picked up. You go to the Texans. Here's the thing working in his favor. Not only is he a hard worker, studies the film, he's got statistically the number one defense in the AFC on the other side of the football, and that's what he enjoyed at Clemson. Great defense, get me the football back. That's what I want. He's also on a division with the Colts still kind of shaky that they can dominate for years if he plays his cards right. Now, the key to Watson is this. Unlike Dak Prescott, or we go back to Andrew Luck, those guys are built like linebackers. Watson, the first thing he learns is when to go down.
Mm-hmm.
Now, as he gets older, K-Mac, the one thing he'll have to handle is he'll have to realize, how can I put on 10 to 15 more pounds and still have the adroitness to get away from the rush and still run upfield when I need to? Because to take the pounding he's going to take in the NFL, he's got to put a little bit more girth on in the right places.
I would imagine in a pro training program that won't be a problem for him. Let's update the Players Championship. For the second straight day, a Palmetto State native is on top of the leaderboard. It's a different Palmetto State native today than it was yesterday. William McGirt, the Wofford product, was on top of the leaderboard after round one. After round two, Clemson product Kyle Stanley is tied atop the leaderboard with Louis Oosthuizen at 9 under par. Stanley scorched it today at Sawgrass with a 6 under par 66. So he is at 9 under par. Oosthuizen is at 9 under. JB Holmes, 2 back of those guys at 7 under par. Mentioned McGirt. We'll update him in a minute. There's some other Palmetto State ties near the top of the leaderboard. Lucas Glover is at 4 under par. Ben Martin is at 3 under par. So Glover is tied for 9th. Martin is tied for 15th. Not a great day for McGirt, though. He's still on the course. Should be finishing his round. He is at 2 over on his round. He was at 5 under to start the round. He is currently at 2 over on his round today. He has 3 holes left in his second round, so he'll have some work to do to get back up there, but should, unless something crazy happens, make the cut. And we'll get a checkup from Jacksonville and Sawgrass from George Bryan, and we'll update you how Wesley Bryan did as well. We're running off to a break. Monty Lee coming up on the other side and more here on Sports Talk. Don't forget, you can find Sports Talk online at SportsTalkSC. Lots of recruiting news there, and it's free of charge, no subscription, no pay per month fee. SportsTalkSC.com. You can also get a web stream to our show every night. Watch us live if you are brave enough. And I always have to give the warning. I'll do it again. It's not always suitable for small children, especially when Corn is here. It can just frighten them to see us in person. That's the kind of thing that can scar a kid for life and years of therapy. It's a dangerous path to go down. So we do advise caution if you're watching the live stream. But if you missed something, you can go back, find old shows on our YouTube channel. There's a list of affiliates. There's a link to listen to the show live. All sorts of good stuff there at SportsTalkSC.com. You can also follow along on Twitter at SportsTalkSC. Give us a follow there. You can interact with us in 140 characters or less. It doesn't take nearly that many characters to say I love you. And you can tweet that at us anytime you want. If you want to tweet directly to me, at KMacMustDie is how you find me on Twitter. It's just a joke. Don't take that literally, please. I think my family would appreciate me not dying. 800-956-7266 is the toll-free number. How about a feel-good story before we get to Monty Lee? I like stories like this on a Friday. A feel-good Friday story, pro. At South Carolina State, they are having their graduation ceremonies now. In fact, I think Governor Henry McMaster is their commencement speaker, as it turns out. So you remember during the season, they had the oldest player ever, Joe Thomas Sr., who was 51. He was, I don't have his age. I double check the age. 53. Check the age. Let's get double check on the age for Joe Thomas Sr. But he's graduating tonight.
Right.
He was the oldest player to play in a game. Now, USC had Tim Frisbee, old Pops. He was up there. He might have been the oldest until Joe Thomas Sr. Not Joe Thomas Jr., Joe Thomas Sr. And he was in his 50s. 55. Okay, so he's 55. Got to think of the Red Rocker.
55, yes.
So, congratulations to Joe Thomas Sr. graduating today at South Carolina State.
He had a few carries.
He did.
You know,
he got carried off the field too.
People say, "Well, he looks good running the football." Well, that's not what I'm going to ask him. I want to ask him the next day when he gets up how he feels, because you know those cells don't reproduce like they used to when you were younger.
It kind of puts the defense in an awkward position, though. You know this guy's going in, and you're a 19-year-old middle linebacker.
Hit him.
Is there any part of you that makes you that you don't want to do that?
No.
It's like when you're at the gym and you're guarding a girl. It does make you feel, even though she might be, but it just makes you feel different. Now, I'm not trying to say this in any kind of sexist way, because I know I could go out there and go through one of Dawn Staley's practices and those girls would run circles around me. But there's a part of you though where it's just that gentleman aspect of you. You don't want to, you won't play as hard against a girl as you would a guy. You know, if there's a 55-year-old, are you going to hit him as hard as you would a 19-year-old? I think I could. I don't think I could take a clean shot and take out Joe Thomas Sr. if I had a clean shot at him. No, I don't think I could do it. I guess I don't have that killer instinct. Jared's back here saying he could do it. He would crush him. No. Now, if it was Kornblut, see, I guess it depends on the person. If it was a stranger, I don't think I could do it. But if it was Kornblut, now maybe I would. Maybe I could hit a guy that's in his mid-50s. That might be something to look into. Okay, moving on. Let's go back to some baseball here. Clemson and Louisville, game one in the books of that series. They had to move things up. They started at 1 o'clock at Doug Kingsmore Stadium. It was a great game to watch. There was plenty of drama and excitement, but for Clemson, they just couldn't make the big play against Louisville. They lost 4-2. Monty Lee's team left 16 runners on base. 16. They were 3 of 18 with runners in scoring position. That's not going to get it done. Let's check in on what Monty Lee had to say after the game.
Well, first of all, I'd like to congratulate Dan McDonald. think it's his 500th win at Louisville today. What a tremendous accomplishment in the amount of years that he's been there. He's one of the best coaches in the country, does an unbelievable job, and just wanted to make sure that we recognize that. It's really, really tough to swallow. Obviously today, lose 4-2, and you just look at the ball game. They scored early, and they scored 3 runs between the third and the fourth on errors, and we had a lot of opportunities today offensively. Left way too many guys on base. We just couldn't come up with the big hit, the sac fly. We just couldn't come up with an at bat where we could drive in some runs. That's the bottom line. Left 16 guys on base. Swung the bats very, very well. Had 11 hits. Had 7 walks. I thought we competed really, really well in the box, and our pitching staff did an outstanding job. Far too often here lately for us, it's the one mistake here and there that's been biting us, and we just hadn't been able to do a good enough job of driving in runs with runners in scoring position. And as a coach, I got to find an answer. Obviously, I'm doing a very poor job of trying to teach our guys offensive baseball with runners in scoring position because, with the amount of opportunities we get, we've got to do a better job of producing runs for our pitching staff and to give us a chance against a really good team like Louisville. I felt like we played really, really well in a lot of areas, but the bottom line is today, leaving that many on base it's just tough for a coach because obviously I'm very accountable for everything we do in the program and feel like I'm letting our guys down with not giving them what they need to give us a better chance in the box with runners on scoring position. So, maybe tomorrow we can find a way. We need somebody to step up and deliver a big blow with runners on base, and I think everybody will relax and we'll be much better. But, the team's obviously hurting. It was a tough one. But we got to find a way to come back and be ready to go tomorrow. We got Eubanks going, and he's as good as it gets when he's on, and he can get us right back in this series tomorrow. And then we've got Crawl going, and that's the way we're looking at it. Hopefully we can learn from this and be ready for tomorrow and be better from it.
Monty, what do you say to Logan? Those 2 tough errors that allowed to get those runs. How do you say to him, a young guy like that, to kind of keep him kind of let him forget him?
You just got to pat him on the back. I mean, you got to keep you talking about a true freshman playing shortstop. I mean, when you put a true freshman at shortstop or in a critical defensive position behind the plate, you have to sell out to him. I mean, that's the bottom line. You cannot kill his confidence by showing your frustrations or disappointments in a physical error. It wasn't a mental error; it's a physical error. So we have to stick with him, and he'll be fine. He'll be fine. So no, I'm not disappointed because it's baseball. Those balls are hit pretty hard. Bottom line is he didn't catch him, but he's made a lot of really good plays for us as well. And the main thing is just trying to do everything I can to make sure he remains confident and understands we're going to stick with him.
What's the answer to trying to get guys to deliver with guys on base?
Well, the thing that I preach is, obviously we got to stay in the strike zone and we got to be very aggressive. We got to swing the bats with conviction in the middle of the field. We got to try to drive the ball into the big part of the field with runners in scoring position. And you got to give Louisville credit. I mean, they really executed some pitches and did some good things with runners in scoring position. That's why they're 42-6 coming in, 43-6 coming into the game, because their pitching staff is really, really good, and they execute pitches with runners on base. But I just got to try to give our guys a better plan. I don't know what that plan is. I'm still searching for it. Just got to try to see if we can come up with something tomorrow to help our guys from an approach standpoint.
Monty Lee, after the Tigers lost 4-2 against Louisville, game 2 coming up tomorrow. Off to a break. Recruiting coming up on the other side. Don't want to miss that. We'll be right back. We've got recruiting for you. You know you love recruiting. And tonight, I love recruiting too. Kornbluth's not here, so I have to step in and deliver a solid recruiting report. I'm going to do my best for you tonight as we jump into recruiting from my lips to your ears. USC this week became one of the new offers for linebacker Andrew Johnson. He's 6'2", 222 pounds out of Georgia. The Gamecocks join Alabama, Auburn, Georgia, Arkansas, Florida State, Georgia Tech, Missouri, Ole Miss, Oregon, West Virginia, and others. Johnson is not all that familiar with the Gamecock program at this point, but he plans to learn more and investigate if it might be a good fit. He said his recruiter, Mike Peterson, was in earlier this week to scout him, and he got word then of an offer. The next day, Will Muschamp called them to put a stamp of approval on that offer, and he told Coach Muschamp, "Thank you for doing that." Johnson said he plans to visit USC this summer, possibly for a camp. He wants to take a closer look at the Gamecocks and give the coaches a chance for a closer look at him. Peterson, he said, is one of the main reasons and Peterson has noted a few important aspects of Johnson's talents. He likes the fact that he can run. Last season, Johnson had 98 tackles, 16 for a loss, 13 sacks as well. No date or timetable for a final decision, but he is considering graduating early, which would give him the opportunity to enroll early. Defensive end Dennis Wanham. He's expected to play a big role at USC this season, but his presence as a member of the Gamecocks will not help in their efforts to lure his brother, an offensive lineman, Dylan Wanham. He's 6'5", 290 pounds out of Tucker, Georgia. Wanham said that, of course, he's interested in the Gamecocks at this point, but no more or less than he's interested in the other schools that are recruiting him. Quote, "They're just like everybody else on my list. They're all equal to everybody else." He and his brother aren't a decision. He's doing it independent of his big bro. Some other offers on the table for the offensive lineman, Dylan Wanham: Mississippi State, Alabama, Florida, Illinois, Kentucky, Georgia, Auburn, Tennessee, Ohio State, Miami, LSU, among others, Ole Miss, Duke, and Michigan State. A slew of offers. New offensive line coach Eric Wolford is in regular contact with Wanham. He's already made a favorable impression in the short amount of time that he's been on the Gamecocks staff. Right now, Wanham does not have any visits set for this summer. He'll make another visit to USC at some point. Wanham said he hopes to make a decision by the end of the summer, but if he can't wait, do it before then. Or wait till after the season. USC already has an offer out to one of the top 2018 quarterbacks in Arizona, Tyler Shupp of Chandler, Arizona. To the Gamecocks offered another from the Cactus State, one of the very talented players out of that state, Jack Plummer, 6'5", 185 pounds of Gilbert. He's a son of legendary Arizona State quarterback Jake Plummer. Wow. That makes you feel a little bit old, doesn't it? Jake Plummer's son is now a recruitable Arizona State and Denver Broncos quarterback. Jake the Snake Plummer played also with the Arizona Cardinals at one point. The younger Plummer has offers from Arizona, Boise State, Memphis, New Mexico State, UNLV, Cincinnati, Hawaii, and Georgia State. Last season, he passed for 2,475 yards with 18 touchdowns and 8 interceptions. Some other notes here. USC target defensive end Jabari Ellis of Georgia Military Junior College has been offered by Colorado. Another USC target, tight end John Fitzpatrick of Atlanta, has been offered by Florida. Defensive end Dorian Gerald of Florence and College of the Canyons Junior College in California has picked up an offer from Oklahoma. 2020 wide receiver Jermaine Burton of Hatfield, Georgia, has been offered by USC. Athlete R.J. Roderick of Cane Bay has picked up an offer from Georgia Tech. And a 2019 running back prospect, Jamias Griffin of Rome, Georgia, has picked up a USC offer. A couple of basketball notes. 6'4", Sharon Wright Jr. of Florence has made his pledge to Wake Forest, where he'll play for Danny Manning. And 6'8", Jake Forrester of Norristown, Pennsylvania, will visit USC Sunday for an unofficial visit, according to Corey Evans of Rivals.com. There it is, tonight's recruiting report. If you missed anything You can go to our website, SportsTalkSC.com. All of the recruiting news and notes updated there throughout the day, throughout the night, throughout the weekend, the weekdays. Kornblut is constantly updating that website with recruiting news and notes. Also, if you want to follow along on Twitter at SportsTalkSC and put in the hashtag ST Recruiting, you can get things as they happen in real time. Twitter's where it goes first, and then to the website. And also, of course, if you're not into those sorts of things, if you don't live in that online world, on it here on Sports Talk every night, we deliver recruiting pro, even when Corn's not here.
Yeah. And
you know what? I think I did a pretty darn good job with that. I'm going to pat myself on the back.
And we got a lot of chaos. At least they hadn't touched the recruiting websites yet. Hopefully they'll stay away from that. But anybody,
who's they?
We just gravitate from there into the news. But if you haven't been paying attention today, they had a massive hack.
Oh,
in which
the Russians?
I don't know what it was, but 74 countries affected.
Nice.
And guys, and apparently whoever did the hacking in some countries, in Europe especially, they got into the hospital computers.
Oh, goodness.
And they said, if you want to get back in, this is how much you have to pay.
And I bet you they pay it.
Computers.
I bet you they pay it.
Well, if I'm lying there ready for surgery and they got a computer over me, yes.
Could you imagine? Yeah. Hey, sorry, Mr. Hayes. We're going to have to postpone things.
You're a victim of a hacking.
That's the world we live in now, unfortunately. It's just, these battles aren't all fought with weapons on a theater of war. They fight them right there on your computer. But, yeah, recruiting has not been hacked.
Thank you.
Sports Talk SC has not been hacked to this point. We have top-notch security walls. Now some hackers listening like, oh, yeah, we'll see about that. Go ahead. Hack away. But sportstalksc.com, where you can get all of the latest recruiting notes. All right, Clemson baseball in the books. USC baseball in Columbia, Missouri, against the Missouri Tigers. That starts at the bottom of the hour, and we'll keep up with that. We have a busy second hour coming your way. George Bryan is going to join us at the top of the hour after our top of the hour break. He's down at Sawgrass at the TC. Wesley Bryan, not a couple of rounds out there, so he's not going to be playing through the weekend, the Heritage champ, former USC standout, but there are plenty of locals at or near the top of the leaderboard. At Kyle Stanley, he's tied for the lead at 9 under par. A few other players like Lucas Glover and Ben Martin right there. William McGirt, who was the clubhouse leader after 18, is still in contention. He's in the top 15, but he did give a couple of strokes back today. So we'll check in with George Bryan. We'll talk some NBA draft from the Combine with Sindarius Thornwell and PJ Dozier. Their thoughts on how things are shaking out there in Chicago. We'll get the full Monty with Monty Dutton, talk a little NASCAR with Monty in the second hour as well. So we are loaded up with good stuff for you in hour number 2. So you can grab you a refreshment, another cold beverage, maybe some hors d'oeuvres, some snacks, or you can scarf down some dinner here during the top of the hour break and then come back for hour number 2 and enjoy it, savor it, because it's the last hour you're going to get this week. Got to make it count.
And, of course, these guys trying out for the NBA, the key point is just get in the league. Get in the league and then prove yourself when you get in there. Case in point, NBA playoffs tonight, Boston at Washington. Isaiah Thomas, he's too small to get in there. He's a free agent, signs with Sacramento Kings, ends up traded to the Suns, traded to Boston, and now he's a superstar. See, it can happen. And he's only 5'9" in heels.
Shortest player in the NBA. He'll be in action tonight against the Washington Wizards. Top of the hour break. Hour number 2 of Sports Talk coming up on the other side. We'll see you there.
Live from Columbia, this is Sports Talk on the South Carolina Radio Network. Be a part of tonight's show. Call us at 800-956-7266 or email talkback@sportstalksc.com. Now, here are your hosts for Sports Talk, Phil Kornbluth, Kevin McCrary, and Tom Hayes.
Hour number 2 of Sports Talk here on South Carolina Radio Network. Glad you're with us. Hope you're doing well wherever you have us dialed in around the state on one of our many great affiliates. Happy Friday to you. Somehow, some way, you made it to the end of the week. Your reward is a great weekend ahead, hopefully, and certainly before any of that starts, another great hour of Sports Talk headed your direction. That much we can guarantee. Looking forward to spending the next hour with you here. Great first hour in the books. We'll begin our second hour by heading out to the guest line and making our way down to Florida, Ponte Vedra, Florida, Sawgrass, a beautiful track, and George Bryan joins us on the line now. Hello, George.
Good evening, man. And how are you all? How are you all tonight?
We're doing well. We're doing very well, and I know you are at least feeling good out there enjoying some of the nice Florida air.
I'll tell you what, it's absolutely gorgeous. And TPC Sawgrass is probably the best venue to watch a professional golf tournament. It is truly stadium golf. And, you know, when golf moves around, and typically it's hard to watch much. You watch one group. Well, in this style, you get to watch a number of groups, especially coming in. That little area 16, 17, and 18 is spectacular and pretty special for golf. There are a lot of people. The weather's about perfect. Golf course is playing difficult. And it's pretty cool to have some South Carolina connections right at the top of the leaderboard too.
Very cool. Yeah. I mean, 2 days, 2 South Carolina guys on the top of the leaderboard, two different ones. Kyle Stanley tied for the lead after 36 holes, and William McGirt was there yesterday. And there are other guys, as you mentioned, lurking. Lucas Glover's in the top 10. You've got Ben Martin in the top 16 or so. So very impressive showing by the Palmetto State guys.
And, you know, it's pretty special. We were talking about these ones that you just mentioned in junior and then even college golf many years ago. And although I didn't get a chance to watch William McGirt play live, I did watch Kyle a little bit. Kyle, as most know, played at Clemson, and then McGirt at Wofford. But I actually went out to watch today Ben Martin play a few holes, and just a couple. I'm going to throw something out right before you play. It's always best to warm up. Well, Ben Martin, he's very quiet and unassuming, but this guy is a physical golf specimen. He broke out into a Zach Johnson lunge before he teed off, and it almost hurt me. And he teed off early today.
Yeah.
But he's definitely on his game. I watched him last week. I think I was watching him as I was as almost escorted off the property. I did not make a gallery official very happy by doing the show live. In between the 8th and 9th hole, he was not happy. But Ben, I went out, continued watching him, and he is on his game. I would not be surprised if he played great. Then Lucas Glover's at -4.
Mm-hmm.
He's at red 4, and he looks great too. I didn't watch him a little bit on the range, not too much live, and he is definitely on. So others, DJ Dustin Johnson, as he proved last week, he barely makes the cut last week. Well, he's inside the cut this week. Difference in his game, the way the golf course is playing, perfect for him. Wouldn't be surprised if he got hot. Unfortunately, my son Wesley, he'll take the weekend off.
Yeah.
And Scott Brown will as well. Kevin Kidner's right on that cut line, and this guy's one of the grittiest competitors that you'll ever watch. And then, as we mentioned, hey, I got to throw out Vijay Singh. He's 53 years old and in contention. 53 years old and right there in position to win at the highest level. How about that?
Yeah, I mean, some of these these old guys know their way around a course. Sergio's not quite that old, but he's winning the Masters, and I like seeing some of the veteran players still competing, but that's great to see VJ up there. You mentioned Wesley. I know this was a course that you thought before might set up well for him. What were some of the challenges he was facing out there over the past couple of rounds? He didn't have a terrible day yesterday, 76 today, 4 over, so he'll miss the cut.
Yeah, he was something just a little bit off, and enough off on this golf course that this is zero tolerance here. Mm-hmm. And for those that don't know that much about the layers in golf, this is the Players Championship, a little bit like the Super Bowl to football, and the golf course reflects that. It's so Wesley didn't quite have his best game from the tee, and you can't be off and perform on this particular golf course. So, but he'll heal up and he'll play in a couple of weeks at Colonial, and I will be I'll be out there live and then reviewing some of the other events that I don't know if I'll be at the British Open or not, but certainly the PGA Championship as far as the remaining majors on the schedule, and then several tour events. And in addition, maybe a web.com event, and the Trek maybe an amateur event as well. So
you're all over the place talking with George Bryan. Have you ever played Sawgrass, by the way?
I have, and it's much harder than it looks.
I believe
very
that.
Unforgiving. Have you played it?
I've never played it. I covered a Super Bowl in Jacksonville, and they had a media party right there near the 17th, and they let us go out there and take a few shots at the 17th green. So I got to experience 17 at Sawgrass, but I've never played the whole course.
Well, maybe next time. And I got to tell you, it's that area you just mentioned, probably the most popular, exciting hole, and the most exciting corner in golf. So it'll be fun watching this weekend. And man, I always closed it out. I almost forgot, but hey, don't forget about Mom. Definitely, I know you guys are bringing that up. Mm-hmm. You got to take care of Mom on Sunday, and I have to admit, my mom took good care of me, and all those out listening, definitely don't forget to take good care of Mom. Tee 'em high, but shoot 'em low.
George, we appreciate it. We'll catch up with you next week. George Bryan joining us on the line and updating us from Sawgrass. And we will continue to follow the action over the weekend as Kyle Stanley very much in contention at 9 under, tied for the lead, and Lucas Glover at 4 under par. He's contending in the top 10. Ben Martin in the top 16. He's at 2 under par. Actually, 3 under par. William McGirt started the day at 5 under par, gave 3 back. He is at 2 under, and Dustin Johnson is at even par. So all of those guys playing through the weekend. Not great news for Wesley Bryan, as he was 4 over pro. He did not make the cut, but he'll play on.
Well, Stanley is 66. You almost think that may smell like a bogey-free round. I'm not sure, but that's good stuff there. Now, I guess the lowest I've ever seen anybody shoot, I can't remember the course it was on, was several years ago, shot a 59.
Yeah, there's been some guys that have, when Chip Beck did it, it was a huge deal, but there's been some other guys here recently that have done that more and more. But the Players Championship outside of the majors, that's the big one. That is really the tournament that some people call it the 5th major in golf. So this is one guys want to win. It has a huge purse, but for a local guy, and it says a lot. George Bryan touched on this. We have talked to George for many years, and he has been playing up junior golf in the state of South Carolina, and it's outstanding. Dustin Johnson, Kyle Stanley, these are guys that not only play collegiately, a lot of these kids played high school golf in South Carolina. They grew up playing golf in this state, and we brag on this state. Yeah, we're biased because we live here, we cover sports here, but I can tell you South Carolina, pound for pound, matches up with anybody in the country in sports. Just look at the championships. Coastal Carolina, Clemson, USC women, Dustin Johnson. I think that speaks for itself and the kind of talent that this state produces. So the NBA draft combine is taking place in Chicago, and it's a big weekend for everybody that was invited, including 3 players from the Palmetto State, 2 from South Carolina, 1 from Clemson, P.J. Dozier and Sindarius Stonewall from USC, and Jerron Blossom game from South Carolina. Looking at some of the mock drafts that are out right now, Draft Express, they have all of those guys going, but none going particularly early. The first guy off the board at number 43 is Jerron Blossom game to the Rockets, so that would be in the second round. Then at number 52 to the Washington Wizards, Sindarius Thornwell, and 53, P.J. Dozier to the Boston Celtics. So that would probably make Kornblut happy. Now, you go in the second round, no guarantees when you go in the second round. First round, guaranteed. You're going to get guaranteed money, and you're going to be on the roster. Second round, not guaranteed money, and you could be in the D League or nowhere. LJ Peak, also not a local player from a college standpoint, but from the state at Gaffney out of Georgetown. He's 60 in that draft. Land of 10's 2017 mock draft. Let's see where it has the locals. Again, nobody going particularly early. 32, Phoenix, and Darius Thornwell. And then you have Blossom game going 42 to Utah, and no P.J. Dozier on that mock draft. So if Dozier wasn't drafted, well, that would be a pretty big blow. That there's some people out there that would seriously second guess his decision pro if he ends up not drafted.
Well, the thing about him is he plays a position where his size is needed, and his arms are tremendously long. And they also look at the coaching they got, because I was talking to Marty Blake one time, who used to be the superstar of scouting in the NBA. He said one of the things he used to tell players is, son, when you get to the NBA, everybody can shoot. They got their patented move. We want to see you play some defense. Show the guys you can play some defense, and you got a chance. Well, the 2 guys from South Carolina, if they didn't play any defense, they wouldn't have played at South Carolina. So they know that they've got the acumen to play defense. And that's going to be the key, especially for Dozier early, because he would be asked to guard a John Wall or Isaiah Thomas, and he has the length to do that. The quickness, we'll see. And, of course, he has to gain strength, but that'll come with age. But somebody will get a good player if they allow him to mature.
Yeah, he was 2 of 11 shooting Thursday in the 5-on-5 portion of the combine. And both of the shots he made were 3-pointers, so he finished with 6 points and 6 rebounds. And you don't have to be a scorer. You don't have to be a great shooter to play point guard in the NBA. That's a misconception. There are guys out there that can play great defense, distribute the basketball, and rebound at that point guard position and not have to knock down jump shots. Let's listen in a little bit what PJ had to say, the state newspaper, Go Gamecocks, on how he came to his decision, and if there was any doubt once he made that decision to retain an agent and forego his eligibility at South Carolina to attempt this NBA draft.
You know, when I finally made the decision and released it, you know, that's really when I made my final decision. You know, I didn't really confirm it any time prior to when I released it. You know, it's not like I was holding it a secret or anything like that. You know, just kind of trying to wait it out. You know, see my options, see the different options, and weigh my choices. So I had my support cast, my family, my coaches. You know, they allowed me to make my own decisions. You know, they definitely helped me throughout the process and let me know how they felt about each decision that I was making. But, you know, ultimately they left it up to me. And, you know, I was ready to be all in and try to make this next step.
So he's all in. There's no going back for him. A guy that there's no going back for him because he's used all of his eligibility in college. Sindarius Thornwell, who was, let's face it, he was the best player in the NCAA tournament this year on any team. He had a great tournament. He is just a force on the basketball court. He's not 6'6", but he can rebound. He can defend. He can get to the rim. He makes his free throws. He's just a gritty player that proved every year at South Carolina. Now, you heard some of the mock drafts. Nobody has him going early. Despite that, Thornwell thinks that he's going to be a steal for a team.
It was dope. It was just a good interview. It was a good conversation, and
What they ask you?
just about my family, about my suspension, and just stuff like that. It was, ask me basketball questions and just stuff like that. It wasn't. People get caught up in. I was wondering, after I've been through a couple of interviews, I'm wondering, man, why everybody be so concerned about it? These interviews are easy. Like, it's just a conversation, and it's easy to talk and have a conversation, and so I enjoyed it.
Did you like a certain team growing up? Are you a fan of 30 teams now?
I never been. I enjoy it. I like everybody, and whoever draft me, that'll be my favorite team. So I don't really have a preference.
Every team is his favorite team. Yeah, I'd imagine that's the way it goes if you're trying to be drafted. These guys getting the fine-tooth comb pro. But the thing about Thornwell and maybe Dozier, these guys aren't going to go early. Now, Dozier can really help himself with a good combine. This is a big weekend for him, so maybe he can push himself up the board. If you're a guy like Thornwell and you get drafted late, one of the teams he talked to, Golden State, San Antonio, a lot of teams talking to him. There's teams that are going to be picking later in the draft that are looking for some value. And just because you get drafted in the second round, I mentioned there's no guarantees, but there are a lot of really good players in the NBA right now that were drafted in the second round. But you go on one of those teams that have established players that are looking for pieces, cheap role players to come in there, come off the bench, defend, rebound, distribute the ball. Thornwell checks off all those boxes, and he's a great kid off the court. I know there was a suspension that was not an indictment of his character. He's going to pass every test with flying colors. I think he's a guy that could catch on with an NBA team. It's not going to be easy. Making an NBA roster is so difficult, so difficult. So you're always facing an uphill battle, but Thornwell does have those intangibles that teams are looking for.
Well, one of the things you want to do is you want to make sure that you're ready for the roller coaster ride, which is that of an NBA player. There will be times when you may be asked to go down to the D League, play a couple of games, and then they ask you to jump on a red eye because they need you back with the main team, and you have to do things like that. And it can be done. I think probably what helps Thornwell as well is more and more teams are adopting what the San Antonio Spurs started and what we see that the disciple of the Spurs and Budenholzer is doing in Atlanta. They'll draft you, and they may tuck you away and say, look, you may have to go down for a week, 2 weeks. We're going to bring you back up, see how you're progressing or whatever. They're going into team player development now, and they're not going to give up on you early. They're going to develop you. They're going to give you 2 or 3 years to develop if you need it, and I think that'll be key for him. But as I said before, if I compare him to any player, it would be Malcolm Brogdon out of Virginia, who played a key role in Milwaukee making the playoffs. Because, K-Mac, I can't impress on listeners enough that one of the things they want to see out of a guard is for him to stick his head underneath that basket and be able to finish on contact. And Thornwell do that.
And let's not forget about Jerome Blossomgame, who had a stellar career at Clemson. He was at the Combine last year. He opted to come back. And, yeah, I think he probably would have gone about the same place last year. So he came back at Clemson, and they didn't have the kind of season they were hoping for. But he's another guy that can do a lot of different things, knows how to defend and score and fill a role in the NBA. These aren't guys that are going to be superstars in the NBA, but can certainly be solid players. The biggest upside out of that trio would be P.J. Dozier. He's the youngest and has that big body, that NBA body and pedigree. But all three of those guys, their dream, we'll see if it happens. They have a chance to help their cause this weekend. Back on Sports Talk, time for our full Monty segment. Monty Dutton joining us on the line now. Talk a little NASCAR with you. And Monty, last weekend, the big story, Danica Patrick's boyfriend won a race. That's how I'm going to refer to it because, you know, with females, they're often referred to as their boyfriend's girlfriends. So I'm going to refer to Stenhouse Jr. as Danica Patrick's boyfriend.
I think Stenhouse probably has a chance to has a legitimate right to request equal time now. You know, I think it is interesting because last week I watched the race with an old colleague of mine, just watched it on TV. And I was talking about the fact that Stenhouse is a really good guy, got a good sense of humor, personable, and people, all they know him as Danica's boyfriend. And I think the best thing about him winning is that, I mean, you know, people probably regard him as being someone they don't know, and he's really an excellent, really good guy. It'll be nice to see, you know, him stop just being a stereotype.
Yeah, I mean, he's was already a more successful driver than Danica, but now he has a bigger case. He got the big win on a big track. And we'll see what happens from there. Speaking of Danica Patrick, how long does the Danica Patrick experiment continue? As long as she's sponsored, though. But at what point do people say, okay, this just isn't happening? There's better drivers.
I think there's a good chance with the sort of disaster about the lawsuits regarding her sponsorship last year and counter charges. It's not just Patrick. There are a lot of drivers who last as long as the money does, and some of them drift down to rides that aren't as good. So, but I mean, I think that the experiment is probably coming fairly close to running its course.
Yeah, I mean, are people still showing up the track to watch Danica Patrick drive? I don't know.
I was thinking about how she sort of disappeared, and I was thinking to myself, is that because she's disappeared, or is that because her car's not Dayglow green anymore? You know, a couple of years ago, you could always, even if it was running 30 seconds, you'd always be able to tell where it was because of that one bright green car. But I was wondering if that was an aspect of it. But, you know, it's kind of like, you know, there are a lot of things that can get you an opportunity. Being the son of being a second generation star, coming from a rich family, but you've still got to prove you do the job. And with all due respect, Danica is also not the first person who maybe the history pages will record that she basically just the Peter principle kicked in, that she reached her level of incompetence. Because you know, in every field of endeavor, people are hot shots. It's just like going from high school to college to the pros. You know, a lot of times you don't know what a person's limit is until he reaches it, or she.
Yes, all the fact that novelty is worn off, and people look at her now and say she's just one of the guys.
Well, yeah, but she's not, because
she's a victim of equal rights.
Right. She's not competing on that level. But you know, maybe she'll stumble into a victory sooner or later.
Well, tell us this: as we go to the track, I think they're in Kansas this week.
They are.
Kyle Larson, I think he had to go to the second car. How much does that hurt his chances come Sunday?
Not much. The backup cars, it's not unusual for backup. It's not that unusual for a backup car to win a race. They sort of like reminds me of the old Jimmy Buffett song. He's from California, but kind of a hot Roman candle from the Texas Panhandle, because he's very fast and really fun to watch. I think that what you watch for him is he's a little bit too impetuous. If you put yourself in a bad position so many times, you know, somebody will do what you don't expect them to, and a wreck will come from it. I think that there have been a lot of race car drivers in history who are very fast, very flashy, but a lot of them didn't win as many races as you might have thought. One great example, who I sort of think about, is Buddy Baker, one of the great hard chargers in the history of racing, the late Buddy Baker, who's also one of the funniest human beings I've ever known. But I mean, that's what will determine. You know, you've seen a lot of maturity in Joey Logano. He was that way when he was young, and Larson will probably get better judgment as time goes on. So that just remains to see. You know, some people don't.
Monty, I wanted to ask you about this. I've talked about it on the show. I thought it was an original idea, but clearly it wasn't, because I've seen some other people talk about it recently on social media and ways to enhance.
The end of original thought is social media.
I thought Donald Trump coined prime the pump this week, so I can take credit for this one. Talked a lot about this, how to get fans involved and people back to the tracks, and I thought a great idea would be to have betting, like where you can go to the track and actually bet on the races, bet on cars, kind of like you do when you go to the horse track, except more horsepower with the cars. What do you think about this idea? Well,
it's done in Vegas. It's done in Vegas year round, and it's done obviously. There's some stunning things that you experience when you're on NASCAR. On either the first or second year in Vegas, I was chatting in the garage with a pretty well-known driver, and I was just chatting, and I said that I was thinking about betting odds, and this person had good odds. You know, he might not win, but it was a good bet just to. And so the race driver says, "I might have to give me some of that," and it wasn't on him. And so I was thinking, this is so. If this was any other sport, nobody would ever say that. You know, he said, well, you know, it's like, so-and-so, who told me Thursday he bet on so-and-so, gave up the lead with 2 laps to go. No, you know, but I mean, it was like, it wasn't even in their mindset. They didn't even think that anybody would say anything. So it could happen. Lord knows all the ways they're trying to squeeze what money they can out of this sport and renew revenue. And I guess, you know, you might say that times are changing because of the locating to Las Vegas of professional teams that for many years was sort of informally prevented because they were worried about compromising the sport. So I think the world is changing. I think NASCAR is a little bit difficult to bet because, you know, when there's 40 cars on there, you'd obviously have a large, certainly like if you'd had betting last week at Talladega. I think, when I even know this from reading about some of those, you know, fantasy teams,
right?
That even though Stenhouse started on the pole, he was in the field in the
exactly.
Yeah,
there's a lot of ways you can do that, and now with the segments that they have, I mean, even if your driver gets knocked out of the race, you like the horse track, you're betting a lot of different things, and if you had actual windows. Just like the horse track where you're going, to me, you could bring in casual fans. Hey, let's go out to Darlington. I know you're not a NASCAR fan, but we can, you know, drink a few cold ones and bet on the cars and watch them speed by. I think you might be able to draw in people that normally wouldn't have the interest. I'm trying to grow the sport, Monty.
Well, now that we've got that problem solved,
and contribute to degenerate gamblers as well.
If I go to the pay window, what do I bet on? The ride or the guy driving the car?
Just like a horse. I've always found out that if you go to here's my old rule from a few things. If you go to a dog track, bet the kennel. If you go to a horse track, bet the jockeys. All else being equal, if you don't know anything else. That was always, I found that to be useful. So, but I bet you know, they'd have trifectas and quinellas and box quinellas.
Yeah, you could have some fun with it.
You could bet Hendrick. Bet, you know.
Yeah, bet teams. There's a lot of things you could do. Real quick before we let you go, who wins this weekend in Kansas?
You know, Kyle Busch has got to win sometime.
So Kyle Busch.
That's just my best. That's, as always, I spent a good 5 seconds considering this when you asked me. But I've had 3 winners this year.
Yeah,
so
I know.
all right.
You're on the record.
Tom T. Holland said that a man who reads the funny things in the box scores knows as much as anybody on the left or the right.
Monty, we appreciate it. Thank you. Final segment here on Sports Talk South Carolina Radio Network. USC and Missouri underway in Columbia, Mizzou. They are in the top of the second inning. The Gamecocks and Tigers scoreless. Missouri got a runner on in the first, but a strike them out, throw them out. That solved that riddle, and the Gamecocks had their leadoff runner aboard here in the top of the second. So big series for the Gamecocks, Pro. They cannot lose this series. This is a must-win series at Mizzou.
Well, all of them are must-win now. And
yeah, both of them.
As we said before, they have been in – the only game I can remember them being out of course, was the debacle that Friday night against Kentucky. Mm-hmm. They've been in every game within the last 2 to 3 innings. So tonight they get a good pitching performance. I think they win.
And Crow hasn't been bad, but he hasn't been dominant in his past few starts. So they're due to have a really good start from him. And Schmidt was a huge blow for them. But let's not forget that Crow is another guy that's going to be a high-round draft pick. And Adam Hill, his biggest problem is his efficiency. He's all over the place, and I think a lot of the Gamecock pitchers are running into this. They're walking too many batters. But Adam Hill is a very capable pitcher and will, in all likelihood, be their Friday night starter next year. Reed Scott's starting to get them some good innings. Reagan's been very good. The Gamecocks still have the pitching to make some noise here. I don't think you completely write them off. For me, things changed when they lost Schmidt. I started feeling a little bit different about them, and that loss against LSU on Sunday was a pivotal moment for them, but they're not out of it yet. Mm-hmm. They had some nice wins this week, actually, that one against Liberty in particular. So this is a team that could still do some things, but their margin for error is gone now. They have to win this series 2 out of 3. And some people will say they have to not only do that, but sweep Georgia at home next week, or they're going to be sweating when they go to Hoover.
Oh, it'd be interesting. They've always sweated when they
they don't usually sweat very long because it's usually a short trip.
Really is a short trip. Yeah, you're right. As we said before, if you're going to be successful in college baseball, you got to have 2 guys that can pitch well and at some points can be dominant. And South Carolina lost that edge. But they still got some good arms. They just have to put it in the strike zone. And then sometimes you got to be kind of change up with some of the hitters. I notice hitters now wait on South Carolina, and South Carolina is trying to be too perfect going to the plate. Get that first strike in there. Now you can play with the strike zone when you get ahead of in the count. I think a lot of times they try to get too cute on the first 2 or 3 deliveries, and they find themselves down in the count. I think you go for that first.
Those free passes kill you in base passes and errors. They come back to haunt you a lot. And one guy that has been struggling with his command, Tyler Johnson, that's a concern for the Gamecocks. He has not been sharp in his past few outings. How does he pitch? And where does he pitch? Do you start bringing him in the 8th and let Reagan close things down for you if you're Chad Holbrook? That's a thought that at least has to be on the radar right now with Johnson. And let's not forget, that's the order that it was for a majority of last season. Johnson came on strong late in the year last year, and then he was a starter in the postseason for them and had some outstanding starts, but he was on the shelf for a while. He has come back. He has looked good in flashes, but he has done things like walk the bases loaded and then strike out the next 3. That's not the way to live if you're close. You're going to get burnt.
Unless you're the wild thing.
Some other scores to pass along. The College of Charleston taking on 17th ranked Arizona this weekend. And the Cougs up 3-1 on the Wildcats there in the Holy City. Scrolling down, updating some other scores. I know in the Big South, Winthrop played this afternoon. So that game already in the books between the Eagles and Campbell. And Winthrop continues to play well. They're up and won that one 7-5. Presbyterian, I was impressed with them earlier this week watching them play. That's a pretty good club there in the Big South. They're on top of Charleston Southern 2-0. And Ward now the full-time head coach for the Charleston Southern Bucks. Mentioned the College of Charleston and the Colonial up 3-1 on Arizona, an out-of-conference game for them. Let's head down to the Southern Conference and see what's happening on our SoCon scoreboard. The Citadel and UNC Greensboro has gone final. That was another early game, and the Bulldogs picking up a win. Wins have been hard to come by for the Citadel this season. They won 5-2. Wofford, a tough loss against, actually a win against Mercer. I beg your pardon. The Terriers, the T-Dogs, a 5-4 win over Mercer. Furman and VMI postponed some weather in the upstate, so they were unable to get that game in the upstate. So that was postponed. Check out in the Sun Belt as they play at UT Arlington, scoreless in the first.
And, of course, we talked about the 3 players trying to make it in the NBA draft. And here's one of the things that can hurt you is when guys go into the draft late. And, of course, we heard today, guy that only started 16 games at Duke in Frank Jackson, the point guard, he's decided that since he's at the combine, he's decided to get an agent, throw himself in the draft. This is a big gamble for him. But somehow, still South Carolina has to grow, and Clemson too, is when guys forget about the name of the school. Mm-hmm. Because sometimes just somebody, well, that's a Duke player, well, I'll draft him. Mm-hmm. You know, these things like that you have to overcome. It'll be interesting to see. It'd be good to see these players break through so Clemson and South Carolina can show that they can put guys in the NBA.
To me, that's the hardest thing to watch with so many underclassmen coming out that end up not getting drafted and not on teams. Maybe they go overseas and play, and they have their own reasons. You never know what's going on behind closed doors, what's their family situations like, what their expectations are. Maybe they understand that they're going to be playing overseas, but making $25,000 in Italy's a better proposition than playing for free somewhere else. I don't know, but it's tough when you see guys that you know could come back and better themselves and potentially get drafted a year later if they just have a little more patience. And I'm not talking about any specific case, but there are a lot of examples of guys that go undrafted in all levels. Now, it doesn't happen in the baseball level as much because there's multiple drafts and you can come back. But you take Artavis Scott at Clemson in football, and this is a guy that could have been the #1 receiver at Clemson. He wasn't drafted. You're telling me if he comes back and plays this year, now the flip side of that is, okay, what if he blows out his knee? Well, he still doesn't draft it. When you don't get drafted, you can't get worse than not getting drafted. A career-ending injury, well, you have an insurance policy. Actually, you're going to get paid out of that. I'm not saying that's an ideal situation, but and it's a tough call for these guys to make, but it's easy to second guess after the fact, but it happens a lot. There are just more guys that come out early pro than there are draft spots. And in the NBA, there are only 2 rounds.
Yeah. And I think the key point this year is that helps the players in the States this year is there's not that run or that high number of foreign players that's in this draft that they think are draft eligible or teams willing to draft this year. Because remember, there have been a run on a lot of foreign players, but this year's a little bit skimpy this year, and that's all to the good if you're an American player. That there's a few more draft spots open for that's concerned.
That's going to do it on the show tonight, Pro. Appreciate it, as always. Thanks to Pat Dano behind the glass, Jared Rogers-Martin, Kevin McCrary here, wishing you a very great weekend. We'll be back on Monday, same time, same place here on Sports Talk to do it all again. Kornblut will even be back. We'll let him back in the studio with us on Monday. We'll see you Monday night on Sports Talk.